stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. Worship Your holy name. The sun comes up. It's a new day dawning. It's time to sing your song again. Whatever may pass and whatever lies before me, let me be singing when the evening comes. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Strength is failing, the end draws near, and my time has come. Still my soul will sing Your praise unending. 10,000 years and then forevermore. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Like never before, oh my I need you.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for Follow Your Faith. It is an honor to be with you here tonight. And let me begin with some prayer. But someone just texted me a few minutes ago and said, don't make Marty angry tonight. So I will do my very best. It'll be part of my prayer. I'll do that tonight.
Okay.
Let's not make Steve angry tonight, most especially.
Steve would be the one you'd have to worry about more than anything, because he could just cut us off and throw us away. And
Yeah. So thank you. Let's begin with. Oh, and by the way, I want to say to you as we begin, would you be so kind? And that's kind of a funny way to start. Would you be able to? I know your name will be attached to it if you send it to us. But what makes you angry? And you could put that on there. And could someone? I'm gonna pray here in a minute. Steve or I Googled, and I just somebody else can do this for just a moment. It was kind of an interesting answer. I asked the question, how often do people get angry? And Steve, if you can look that up just real quick, and maybe we can come to an answer. And that was kind of an interesting one that I thought give us a start. So let's begin. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Heavenly Father, bless us. And as we ponder Jesus, always ponder Jesus and what he shares with us about anger. Help us to be a more peaceful people. Help us to be a people that are not so angry. And that when we are, may we be angry as God is angry. May we love as God is loves. And so therefore, then our anger will be an anger of righteousness. So help us to know that your love, and help us to have your peace, most especially of all, your forgiving touch. And we ask all this through Christ our Lord. Amen. So thanks everybody for watching. And Marty, what did you get, Steve, by the way, over there? What about that question?
Well, I was going to put it in the chat, but it says, experts suggest that the average adult gets angry about once a day and annoyed or peeved about 3 times a day. Other anger management experts suggest that getting angry 15 times a day is more a realistic average.
15 times a day. That's a lot.
well, whose idea was it to talk about anger anyway?
He said very angrily.
We have 2 parts tonight. One is anger, and the other one is handling difficult people, which I think they go hand in hand.
I
Right?
think so.
Because
Yes,
angry people are usually difficult people,
Yes.
and difficult people are usually angry people.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll get to all of that in a minute. But I thought, because I'm reading this book by Michael Scanlon, who's was a Franciscan who ran Franciscan University in Steubenville, and then he was director of the seminary at Loretto. He's done a lot of things. The book is really fascinating. But I just happened to be reading through it when we decided we were going to talk about anger, and boom, this is how the Spirit works sometimes. But he wrote this. He said, "What makes you angry? Traffic jam, a parking ticket, an order from your boss that you consider unreasonable? Or do you get angry at sin, the things that anger God? Does false teaching in the church make you angry as a snub from someone you wish you knew better?" Well, he insists in his writing that handling anger is a matter of seeing the world the way it really is. In other words, we get angry over things that we really can't control in a lot of instances, right? I mean, we get angry, but if we just stand back and realize and go, well, we're getting angry over something we really have no control over. Is that too simplistic?
Yeah, and if I go by my own experience, I think, and that last line was interesting to me, handling anger is a matter of seeing the world as it really is.
Yeah.
Now, if I see the world as it really is, then I get my ego out of the way. If I get my ego out of the way, I don't think I ever get angry. I get angry when my ego's in a way. You've offended me, or I'm offended in some way, or it affects me. And so if I don't have any agenda in the whole thing, then my anger is lessened remarkably. So that was my answer to that. So I think it's hard to see reality a lot of times because we get our ego in the way, my agenda in the way. And so I think that's the problem. And then when we see reality and get my own ego out of the way, I think I do much better.
Okay, let's try to bring it down to it. Did you get angry at the play calling in the Steeler game today?
Oh, I
know you did. Some reaction.
I watched the games with Tony Kamnikar. He and I watched the games together. And, it was so frustrating. I think it's the worst game I ever saw played in my life.
So were you angry?
Yeah, I was.
And your
yeah.
ego had nothing to do with
Oh,
it.
that's a
as
really
well.
good point.
I
But
mean-
my heart did. I wanted to see them do well, and they didn't. They did lousy. And so my expectations is what made me angry. So I was invested in what the Steelers were doing. That's a good question, by the way. I was invested in what the Steelers were doing with all that, and in my investment in them, I was angry. Yeah, I guess I was.
Angry at who or what? Were you angry at your head coach?
No, I wasn't angry.
I
at
know
the
you
coach.
think he's one of the greatest ever.
Yes, I do.
You don't go online tonight because
Yes.
they're out for his scalp everywhere.
I know.
I
I
mean,
don't. I will not. I will
Do
not.
not
I will
go on.
I will
because
not.
You will not. You will get angry if you
No,
go on.
you're right. I won't. I
But
won't.
I mean, okay, it was genuine anger though because you expect better.
I expected them to be better, much better than they were. I think they fell all over themselves the whole
right.
time.
Was it worth getting angry over that?
Absolutely not.
Does anger ever have a worth?
Yes.
How and when?
So if I would go to Scripture, Jesus's anger at the priests in the temple, the corruption, the
Yeah.
decay.
And we have things about that.
Yes,
we're
yeah,
gonna talk
that
about.
would
Right.
be now. So I think when you are angry, you have righteous anger at something, and you don't lose control. See, I have a way of saying certain words when I watch the Steelers play that makes them angry. So I'll think of Tony Slater. Look at this guy. What does he say? I'm not bad. They're not that bad.
But I mean, seriously
but it's
though,
like-
you were angry.
yeah, I was
So my point to that was,
frustrated, angry, whatever.
yeah, anger is something we all live with, and it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm angry at you because of what you said at Mass today. Like, how dare you speak to me about the kind of life I should be living, which
Right,
is what you
right.
talked about.
Right.
That's different than getting angry at your favorite football team stinking up the joint.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yes, it is. That
So
would
are
be
there
the-
degrees of anger, I guess is where
I-
I'm going.
I-
And how would you counsel people? Because I'm sure you get people all the time who, whether it's in confession or just talking to you and say, Father, you got to help me. I keep getting angry at X. And why do I get angry at X?
And I would say most of the time when I hear that, I don't know if I'll talk about it, but I think I can speak about it this way. Mostly it's spouses getting angry at their spouses. And I'll ask the question then, does your spouse do that all the time? And they'll say, yeah. Well, expectations equal disappointments. Why are you expecting him to change? He's been doing it for the last 50 years that way. Why don't you not? Now, these are not big things. These are things like how he loads the dishwasher or something like that, So it's like, why don't you let it go and then give yourself a break, from the anger? But anyway, it's kind of like that kind of stuff. And these be more seasoned married couples that get frustrated with each other.
Seasoned. Yeah,
Yeah,
there we go
yeah.
again. Jerry,
Yeah,
you have angry people.
We're a lot of
that-
stuff
Yeah,
over
a
here.
lot of
Whoa, there's a
people-
lot of stuff.
A lot of
Okay.
people are angry here. They're coming in early. Your Susie says when someone, what makes her angry, has their own agenda, and Susie, you're fragmented.
Well, that was Susie that
and,
said
and
that.
don't
That was
listen to,
her.
Yeah, and don't listen to understand. She says, perfect words, my expectations, quote. Ms. Laporta says, I get angry at prejudice and bigotry. I get angry at injustice. That is righteous anger. My petty personal angers are, I think she meant to say, useless. Linda says, I think there's more than just ego. You could be angry, I think, about injustice, abuse of children.
Sure.
Says what's going on in the Middle East or abuse of power.
I agree with that. Yes.
I think it's Jeannie. She said, but petty personal angers really are my own problem.
Yeah.
And our girl Betty says, maybe more frustrated than anger when it comes to Steelers, but they didn't play bad on purpose. Oh, aren't you?
Betty, you're so good, man. You're
geez.
so good. They didn't play bad on purpose, Marty.
Yeah.
Let's
get
I don't know.
Betty
It
in
sure
the
looked
host.
to me
She's
like-
right.
It
She's
sure
right.
looked to me like they may have had money on the other guys. I'm just saying.
And inconsiderate,
Thank
impolite people was Frank's last comment.
Yeah.
All right, Nikki Gumbel in The Jesus Lifestyle, which
Okay,
is a
yes.
book we've been using
Good
now
book
for the
reading
past
there.
couple of weeks. He says, he writes that anger is more common than we might think. And he said this, he said, Jesus says, but I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Not all anger is wrong. Jesus himself was angry at times. He overturned the tables of the money changers.
Yes.
He called the Pharisees blind fools. So as Nicky Gumbel goes on and cites all these examples of, Jesus was angry. Well, if Jesus could be angry, why can't we be angry?
Okay. Now, the answer to that in my mind, I can be angry and I can be out of control. I'm out of control. I'm venting or something like that. I'm just venting about something. And Jesus was never out of control. Even when he was whipping, I can imagine him whipping the actual temple itself in his anger and frustration at the priesthood, at the corruption that was there. And I can imagine him, but at the same time, I can also imagine him can be completely under control about that. Now, whenever I'm in control and still angry, that's good. I think we're okay. And what Linda said, a little bit there, anger at injustice, abuse of children, what's going on in the Middle East, which is a very complicated thing, by the way, what's going on in the Middle East, How can you, to really try, I think to realize what's really, go back to reality again. We go on social media and you see the anti-Palestinian, the anti-Semitic, and you see all the different pundits giving their points of view. I could be more angry at that than I am at what's really going on with all this. And so I think sometimes that kind of makes you angry. But I think if you lose control, I think that's the issue. You're out of control. I think we're in trouble.
Is anger, in your view, as a counselor, ever to the point where it's absolutely acceptable and just let it go, blow off all the steam you want? Even though you're getting mad at people, maybe you're calling people names, it's anger, it's good. Do you ever say that?
Yeah, I think, especially whenever someone is talking about the clergy scandal, I let them talk. Yeah, say whatever they want.
Because there were a lot of us that were angry.
Yes.
Very angry when that happened.
And it's all I can say. And by the way, I'll give a shout out to our bishop a little bit too with all this. I've seen him in a room with people that have been abused, and I have seen him sit there patiently and let them talk and let them go on. And so, yeah, I think there's times you have to do that. Absolutely. I rarely shut somebody up when they're that angry. I rarely would do that, I think.
So is there times, though, as a counselor, is there a moment where you just go, you know what, there's nothing I'm going to say that's going to make this person feel any better about this situation? The anger is over. But don't you have to temper it at some point?
Yeah.
Because if you keep that anger, that's not healthy either. You hear that all the time.
I think what I would say is something like, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry, and I will always be sorry for that. I just beg your forgiveness. In the name of all the priests in the world, I offer my sadness of what happened and my desire for forgiveness, and just simply saying I'm sorry, my apology. And it sounds so weak, apology, but so yeah, I don't try to change them at all. I think it'd be an unjust thing to do. When someone's had a terrible tragedy, in some way, I don't try to say, I try my best never ever to say to somebody, you shouldn't feel that way. Because you do.
And the thing that's always struck me is, okay, and I can remember raising children, trying to counsel them against, okay, don't get so angry. And I'm thinking, if they were listening to me in the last half hour, they're going to say, what are you talking about? You were like, you blew up. And and I have. I mean, I'm got so angry and just started saying things as I'm saying them. Oh man, I shouldn't be saying this, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a human...
then I'm out of control. When I'm doing that, I'm thinking, what am I doing, man? That's it. I'm out of control. Yes.
But everybody is allowed to get angry. I guess what I'm trying to do is
frame
this.
Yes, you are.
Just because you get angry doesn't mean that you're a bad person.
Oh no, my gosh, no.
Jesus say, "Be angry, but don't sin."
Yeah.
You can explain.
Only was Jesus.
Yeah,
was Jesus or was that James that said that? Be angry, but don't sin.
Maybe that was James.
Well, it's part of what I was reading.
Still.
I was going to get there, Jerry, because I was going to. But that's.
I think it's in here somewhere.
Okay, and Gumbel wrote, he said, our anger trends on the whole to be unrighteous.
Yes.
You were talking about righteous and unrighteous.
Yeah.
Unlike Jesus, we get angry because we're hurt, jealous, proud, arrogant, our toes have been trodden on, or our noses put out of joint. The test of whether our anger is justified or without cause is to work out whether it's based on love for others or simply love for ourselves.
That's my ego thing.
Yep.
That's my ego part. And that would be my personal situation. Now, sometimes I could get angry and I get trapped in something. And I feel like I'm in an unjust situation and I'm being trapped in some fashion. And then I get angry. It's like I'm in a corner here and I'll just, there's in other words, I feel like there's not a rational thing I can say to make this better. Boom. I could just feel it kind of coming up
And
inside
it
of
can
me.
be a physical manifestation.
Oh
of
yeah,
anger, right?
yeah.
I mean,
Seeing red. Have you ever
Oh,
heard that phrase? You know.
yeah, and you can tell when some people are angry. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
I did the wrong thing. Look
Yeah.
at here comes a charging bull. Jerry.
Barbara says anger is the first emotion we have access to. What is important to determine what is below our anger?
Well, see that you're right. Now, what she's trying to say there is that psychologists would say to us. I think that's what you're saying, Barbara. You correct me if I'm wrong. That anger is a secondary emotion, which means there's always something underneath it. Here we go. Hurt, jealous, proud, arrogant, all those things. There's something underneath it. And then because my ego gets hurt in some fashion, then comes the anger. I can't fix it. I can't control it or whatever. And I'm looking bad here or whatever. And boom, here it comes.
You know, I think a lot of people with not so much anymore because of things like the priest scandal and others, but there was a time when we were kids, you know, we looked upon people in black with the collar as though they could do absolutely
Which was
no
the worst thing that could have happened to us.
And I can remember Father Schnur. I don't remember his first name, but when I was an altar server, he was, whenever I drew him, my assignment was him. I go, oh man, what did I do? Why, you know, and he could make me angry like that. I mean,
What would he do? What would he do?
Okay, he literally, now this, remember, priest back to the congregation, and the altar servers are kneeling behind
I got the
priest,
drill. Yep.
okay?
Yep.
And in the middle of and I don't even, one of us said or just coughed or did something. I can remember him turning around on the altar, pointing and saying, "Don't you ever do that again," in the middle of Mass.
It's almost like there was a very unhappy guy.
Yeah,
you know?
and I couldn't get angry at the moment because I was scared to death because the
Correct.
guy
I
was,
got
you know,
it.
I mean,
Yep.
he was like, I thought he's going to snap if I say anything. But I got angry after Mass, not at him.
If you got mad at him, they'd have beat you up or something.
Yeah,
you
well,
know?
that's what I thought.
Yeah,
If I respond now to him yelling at me, this is going to get out of hand in a big hurry, and I'm going to be on the short end of the stick.
That's for
but
sure.
when I went home or when I left, I got angry, and I wonder about the, you know, I've gotten angry at people that maybe not to their face, but boy, I've let it loose when I walk away from them about what I think of
Oh
them.
yeah, I guess I've done that. I mean, see, whenever I get angry like that, hurt is underneath that. Like even whenever he did that to you,
Yeah,
first of all, he hurt you, and then all of a sudden someone's like, "What? You know, what? You know," and then you get angry. Yeah, yeah. Anger to me, in that sense, is almost a way of dealing with a hurt. Now, Barbara, did that touch what you were talking about underneath it? You said it's a term of what's below it. I think that's true.
Do you get angry with yourself after a homily that didn't go quite the way you had framed it, and you know you realize that you're saying this after Mass? Do you go and go, I got to do better. I wasn't familiar enough with this text
Yes.
that I wanted to present,
I'll beat myself up almost every time.
and
Yes.
that's anger, but that's not anger.
Yeah,
right?
but see, a part, I have to balance that because part of that's a tremendous amount of pride too. So I'll beat myself about a homily or anything that I do that I think is poorly done. I'll beat myself up about it, but I got to learn to let that go because at a certain point, that's just pride. You know, it just, you know.
Throughout your career, I don't like that word,
Yeah,
but you
yeah.
know, the years that you have been a priest, your vocation has been 38 years, I think.
38 years,
All right,
yep.
38 years. There have to be moments, if you sat down and really thought about it, where you were either angry at yourself or you were angry with the way the congregation responded.
Oh,
to the message.
I've done that at different. I've never done it. I've done it. You know, the thing that has made me angry, and this is pure ego. I still to this day, I get angry at people leaving Mass early. that can burn me in a minute. And I've commented about it at times.
Oh,
with
I
different
can
things.
remember somebody was across the street in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And there was a priest out by the front door calling that person's name.
Yeah.
And I had an emergency that I had to get to, and I was like,
I did that.
I never leave.
Oh, I
never
wasn't
leave
being
early.
too bad.
I did. Oh, yeah, it was. It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like you wanted to make the point.
So
And-
what's up, Marty? You know, yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah, it's
did.
like,
I
hey,
did
where
do
you
that.
going?
did do
And
that.
I felt, but it was like, I didn't get mad. I got a little tinge of anger there because I'm thinking, you know what? I never leave early. But I've got a situation. I waited. I left when the final
You were fine.
hymn
You were
started.
fine. You were fine.
I
Yeah,
waited
yeah,
till
I
the
know.
final
Yeah,
hymn was
yeah,
being
yeah,
sung. It
yeah.
wasn't like I missed any of the mass itself, and I don't like doing it, but I had to. But no, you called me out. And I thought, how'd you get out that quick? You must have left the altar early because I thought I had plenty of time to get out there. But okay, so I got for a moment.
So yes,
I
I,
got
have
angry.
failed at that.
I
Yes.
got angry at you because I'm thinking, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay. I didn't do anything. I didn't commit a sin here. I got something. I've got a situation I have to take care
And
of.
you were there, and you're right. You're absolutely right about all that. But that's one thing. Now, I don't think I've ever done it too much. I did it my first time I was here, but haven't done it for a long. And I don't forget John Livingston saying to me one time, and I did it. I did something about. I kind of got frustrated about something. Again, it's all pure ego. I wouldn't do that. And he said, and he kind of wagged his finger at me a little bit. I don't know if John's watching all this right now. He can maybe say something if he is. And he said, your job's to welcome people. You know, that's your job. You know, and so he cut me to the quick. I'll never forget that. And that was at a staff meeting that happened and years ago. And I've remembered that ever since.
Jerry?
Two comments here. Linda says anger is an emotion. Emotions provide us with information. They are not good or bad. It's just what you do with it.
Correct.
This is what we teach our students at school. It's a program we do from Penn State.
Yeah, no emotion. Emotions are not moral.
Yeah.
They're just they just happen. And great. What do you do with them is the key. That's right. Yeah. And usually when you react, which we'll get to, I think, that's the big issue sometimes. Another one you got?
Frank says anger can be the fight side of the flight or flight response.
It could be. It could
Linda
be.
then added to why people respond to anything in life is based on who they are, their conditions, and life experience. Can someone get angry at you if it says more about them than about you in many cases?
Yeah, in many ways it does. You're right.
And
Yeah.
Betty says, when we are speaking of anger, here sometimes good to accept and admit anger, sometimes okay, no good to let it control our get. I have this emoji heart thing I can't get rid of that hides the bottom
I know. I see
word
that.
in my paragraph.
It's on mine too. It's on mine there too.
So annoying.
Yeah.
Well, who put it there?
Not me.
Yeah, you must
I
have.
put
You
emojis.
can't. Emojis don't come out of
I
nowhere.
wouldn't use a heart emoji. I hate everybody.
I can get him angry. If I say to him,
Getting angry.
he
I'm getting-
put that.
I'm getting angry,
He
but-
put that art emoji.
Ticked off to talk about anger.
Yeah.
Gumbel, again, in his book, wrote this. He said, Thomas Jefferson said, when angry, count to 10 when you speak. If you're very angry, it says hungry. If you're very angry, 100. There's probably a
You know
little
what?
lesson
That
there in
is
all of it.
really a really good idea. But you know what's so sad about anger? You want to do something about it, like right now.
Of course you do.
You know, that's the worst
I mean,
part.
that's easy to say, well, count to 10 or count to 100. Yeah, I don't want to count to 100. I want to take care of this right now, right?
Yeah, because I just want to at something, so yeah, at that. But that works if you do it. That works.
Have you ever done it?
Yeah. I've actually walked away from something. I feel like here's my problem. I feel like if I walk away from I'm being irresponsible. And so, but if I do walk away and I count to 10, 50, 100 or whatever the heck it is, just walk away. It is my response to what happened is always 100% better. Always 100% better.
You get angry at the church?
Yeah, less now. I've actually had a friend of mine, Deacon Pat Logston. We would talk a lot and we would email. He even said to me at one point, you should go to counseling about your anger with the church.
Really?
Yes, and I did.
And, I mean, without getting into specifics, you were angry at things that were being done, things that were being said. I know you get angry when conservatives generally conservatives inside the Vatican attack Pope Francis. That makes you angry.
It does. It's kind of funny you said that. That's good. Last we were at the Sparks the concert, and somebody walked up to me afterwards and says, "Hey, I'm on all these apps that are just trashing the Pope." And I just went, get off the apps, just stay away from social media. You're on the wrong ones, because I think they completely miss the point of what this man is saying. And I hear them, and sometimes I go, what are you thinking? And this one guy's name was Michael Lofton, I think his name is. Go watch Michael Lofton if you hear anybody doing that. And he's saying, he calls it the something of suspicion, the hermeneutic of suspicion or something. They're always looking for the Pope to say something that they can twist around that makes it look like he's saying something other than, because they're always suspicious of everything he says. They want to kind of get him.
Doesn't that sound familiar?
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus and the Pharisees.
Oh, geez. Oh, you're right about that. Oh, that's true. But anyway, so I just said, kind of a little bit of anger kind of came out last night. It was about a minute conversation. Stay off the apps. Get away from those social media things. You're in the wrong
But
ones.
it does make you angry, because when you talk about it in church, it's obvious.
Yeah.
You can just see your blood pressure starting to go up.
Yeah.
A little red coming up into your face. And it's one of those, and you probably have been like this. All right, now if you're doing that, if we're having a conversation, I can say, okay, I'm going to push a couple of buttons here because I know I can get it. And that happens.
Yeah.
And you've probably done that, not maybe consciously, but you've thought, oh, really? You want to go there, do you? Right? But isn't that some part of human nature?
Well, that one there, I'm afraid to go at, because I can get frustrated with that pretty fast. With that, I just think that when people do that stuff, they're really missing the point of what the man is saying over and over again, and they twist it. Plus, you've seen headlines that say things about Pope Francis. There's nothing to do with what he actually said.
Well, now keep in mind, and I have to keep reminding my younger friends. I go, okay, that headline was written for one reason and one reason only, and you just proved it because you clicked on it, okay? Or you did something that made it noticeable. It doesn't matter whether it's true or not. It's just something to get you. It pushed your button, so you went after it, and then it becomes.
It's like Jesus. They were always trying to prove that he's unfaithful to the law, and so with Pope Francis, they're always trying to prove he's unfaithful to the church's tradition. They're always trying to prove that.
Sure they
over
are.
and over
Sure
again.
they are. And the authorities in Jesus' time were always trying to trap him.
Yes.
Which I have to admit, okay, this is his human kind, his human self. And I always thought, man, this guy's he's got the patience of Job. No pun intended there.
Who Jesus?
Jesus,
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
because they are like, and he'd always seem to find a way that he would, he'd flip it on them, right? He did that to the Pharisees a lot. They'd say something to him, and he'd come back at him, and then you could just, in your head, you could say, well, if I was standing there, I'd watch the Pharisees going, what the hell do we do now? Why did he say that, right? Okay, and Nicky Gumbel said that Jesus always warned that words were powerful, and that words alone can be extremely damaging. And I don't think we really think about that a lot, do we?
I know I have said things in inappropriate times that I wish I could take it back. I wish I could erase that from someone's memory. Things I've said.
My father, as I was growing up, and I can still see him standing there, and he'd go, think before you open your mouth.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Especially if it's a close relationship, like with a spouse or something like that. You got to watch what you say, because that's embedded in their brain, and that's got to be a tough one. And so, yeah, even sometimes saying you're sorry you said it isn't enough, because you said it, man, you can't get it back.
You can't take it back. I mean, I think you say you're sorry because you don't know what else to say, because I think a lot of times when you say you're sorry, it's because I can't really make that go away. I said it, I've got to own it. But I say I'm sorry, and I realize that's really not enough, but I got nothing else to tell you, that I know I should have not said that.
Yeah,
but that doesn't excuse the fact that I did.
That I said it.
And Gumbel also writes about Jesus not suggesting that we suppress our feelings and emotions. Rather, he warns against reacting out of anger because we've been hurt in some way. And who doesn't do that?
Yeah, well, that's what we're talking about. We're back to that counting to 10 and stuff.
Yeah.
And what Linda, she wrote about that. Feelings are emotions. What we do with them is by the way, folks, emotions are never moral. Never. There's not one emotion that's moral. They just come. You can't help it. Sins, things we call sins, are things that we have an act of the will we choose. You don't choose your emotions. So when anger comes, you're not choosing it, but it's a reaction to it. I think
You
it's
never
bigger.
choose anger?
I don't think you do choose that. The emotion of anger. The
Okay,
emotion.
okay.
Now I
Because
could
you-
choose to be angry.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
an act
yeah,
of the will.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's an act of the will. Yes.
So there's really, I guess, this whole discussion is we can't sit here and say don't ever be angry because
Oh,
that's
no,
not
no, no,
real,
no,
right?
no,
That's
no,
not
no.
realistic.
Right, no.
We're going to be angry.
Right.
And I was always taught, okay, if that anger is within you, deal with it, get rid of it. Some people take that the wrong way. Oh, I can get rid of it. I can just pile it on you. I can, now I feel better, and I burdened you with it.
Right.
But I mean, I don't think we're trying to sit here and say, oh, never get angry, because we know better than that.
Right. No.
to get angry.
Because that's human.
Jerry's
It's
getting
human.
angry because I'm not calling out.
It's
No,
human.
I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. No, Barbara said about you feeling you're correct about hurt versus anger probably comes from unfinished business or past experiences which we have never dealt with. In my opinion, these feelings usually come from our childhood.
Yep. Yeah, they do.
And then Lisa says, I expect better is the basis for our anger. I get angry over animal abuse, poor work ethic, young person entitlement. I hate that one too. And people willing to take jabs at my faith. Now you could say that that's ego or whatever, but that
That's all right. Okay.
that ticks me off too.
But that's what you get angry about, Lisa. We have to accept all that. Now, what we do with that anger. Now, a lot of times, anger can drive people to do wonderful things. You get
Such
angry.
as?
Maybe the civil rights movement when Rosa Parks refused to get up and give her seat
Right.
to a white man. She in 1955, that was the beginning of the civil rights movement in the United States. That was a righteous anger on her part to do that. So anger can cause great things to happen in many ways.
When you see someone who's angry, who's spouting or talking or lecturing or admonishing someone else, are you allowed to get angry at them
Yeah,
as
sure.
you watch that?
Especially if they're bullying somebody.
Yeah, which you see a lot,
Yeah,
okay, right?
yeah,
And then but then that comes down to people will say, well, it's none of your business, so why do you get involved? So
Well,
where's
because
the,
you're watching something that's wrong.
and so it's always okay to take that step and
Well, I think that's what Jesus did in the temple.
That's
He
what I
saw
was gonna
something
ask
that was
you.
wrong. Yeah. Yeah.
But did he? It doesn't say. The story never told us. Like, had he implored that not to happen on several occasions, and then walks in one day and says, "They didn't listen to anything I said. They told me they were going to." Is that because it's like the way it's written? It's like he freaked out. I mean, he just like he'd had enough.
Well, if you read in that particular pericope, but if you read the rest of that section, especially in Luke's gospel, we just read about that stuff, as he arrives in Jerusalem, he was railing at them in different ways. That was the first thing he did. Then there was other things. He started ripping at them with different things. And the poor widow's mite. We oftentimes think, oh, wasn't she generous? She gave completely out of her need. In other words, she was willing to starve herself to give money to the temple. That had nothing to do with what that story was about. Right before that was when Jesus was railing at them about in the temple. So what he was saying to that, this proves my point. This is how corrupt this is, that they would actually expect this poor thing. Oh, the verse right before it was these priests, they'll take the homes of widows and things like that, I think I can find this pretty quickly here. Let me see. Oh, here it is. Okay, now this is right before the poor widow. Then within the hearing of all the people, he said to them, be on guard. This is right after the cleansing of the temple. Be on guard against the scribes who like to go around in long robes and love greetings in marketplaces, seats of honor in synagogues, and places of honor in banquets. They devour the houses of widows, and as a pretext recite lengthy prayers. They will receive a very severe condemnation. And then comes the poor widow's mite, which I think Jesus is railing against a corrupt system that's actually asking her to give money to the temple to the point of her destitution. That's what I think is going on in that story right there. And then he foretells the temple's destruction after it. So yeah, he was doing a lot of things when he got there. That was just one. The cleansing of the temple is just one.
What about when he was the night of his arrest and he goes off to pray and he comes back and the disciples are asleep and he obviously gets angry.
Yeah, I guess he did. Yeah,
Angry or disappointed?
yeah.
Well,
Is that a
the way it's
version?
written, it sounds like he's angry.
Is that a version of anger or disappointment?
You could
Yeah, I was
not. You
wondering
could not
about
stay
that.
awake for 1 hour.
Yeah, I'd been thinking about anger and disappointment and how the two are intertwined.
And frustration. You know, all these different words are words that mean the same thing.
Okay, disappointed, frustrated, angry. My point is that Jesus, although he was, that's his human nature.
Which is human, yes.
You
Yeah.
need to keep thinking that because he was divine. He got mad because these were his friends, and while they may not have known what was coming, I don't think they did. I don't think.
But
they
he
had it.
never sinned.
Now that's an interesting one,
Never sinned.
and now you're going to get angry with me because how do we know that he never sinned? Not
It
a
says it in the Bible.
So nothing.
Nothing.
He never cursed at his parents.
No, I doubt that one.
You don't
Anyway.
think he ever got angry with either
Well,
his mother?
again,
or-
his anger, he never lost control. And I can't imagine being angry at Mary. Yeah, I would have a tough time
Well,
with that one.
but if you think of Mary in her human form, I mean, she said, "Jesus, what are you doing?" Be like any mother, right?
Yeah. Well, like he gets lost. He's off in the temple knocking around.
Yeah.
They're looking for him for 3 days.
I would have been angry with him.
Yeah.
I
I'm not
can't-
saying that
she
Joseph
had to
might
be
have-
angry at that point.
But they never lost. Anger is not a sin. It's when we get out of control. I think it's a sin. Now, if I may, before you switch gears.
No, I'm
Okay.
going on. Go
Okay.
ahead.
I
I'm
want
not going to switch gears.
I wanted to.
there you go again. You keep saying that I go off script. That makes me so angry.
Folks, he hasn't been on anything on this script. There's nothing on here. So, but I'm going to. You're not moving to the other chapter yet, are you?
No, we're not
Okay,
going
okay.
to the next topic. No.
Okay, I want to go. What are you going to ask me then? Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish up there.
Because I wanted to shift to God's anger
Okay, well,
and God punishing.
then go to God's. I told you that okay, so that everybody understands when I put this thing together and I send it to him and I go okay, here, this is a guide, and this time you wrote back that there were 2 topics that you wanted to talk about that I hadn't included in my notes, and I wrote back to you. I think once you review the content of the parts of the book, I'm telling you what you want to talk about, and it does talk a lot about God's anger in there.
Yeah,
doesn't
and it does. And this one part I wanted to share.
Okay,
Yeah.
go.
What was the second one?
Second, what?
You said it's the 2 things I wanted to talk about.
What one was God's? Oh, all right. You go ahead and tell
All right,
me
I'll talk about
while
this.
I look it up.
Now God. This goes along with God punishing, God's anger, or whatever it is. So now we have to realize. Okay, in the Old Testament, I think in the first reading today at Mass, you get God's wrath. God
Right.
Came out
Yes.
with all
Yes.
that.
Yes.
So this is one thing. It's quite. I'm going to get to a quote by C.S. Lewis. That's what I'm trying to get at here. Sometimes people so emphasize the anger of God that there is a suggestion that God has a dual nature, that he is love and wrath. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that God is wrath. However, it does say that God is love. His anger is part of his holy love. Did you hear that, folks? His anger is part of his holy love, a flame that sears and purifies. There is no moral flabbiness in God. Anger is God's personal reaction to sin. God doesn't lose control either. God doesn't sin either. He loves people and he is angry on behalf of the victims of oppression, injustice, cruelty. C.S. Lewis says, such anger is the fluid that love bleeds when you cut it. Such anger is the fluid that love bleeds when you cut it. So God can be very, very frustrated. In the Bible, you hear God's anger, God's punishment, everything else. That's God's wrath. That's all God's love. And that beautiful quote, such anger, such wrath, such punishment, where the word punishment we use in there, is the fluid that love bleeds. God loves us so much that he'll give us a pop upside the head every once in a while because sometimes we need it. Not that God does put corporal punishment. Don't get me on that one too. But so I want to say God does not punish. What I mean by that is God has no retribution in his soul at all. There's no retribution in God. All God's punishments or all God's anger is to restore you, is to make you better, is to transform you in many ways. And so I hope you understand. Does that make sense? God does, when I say God does not punish, and I will stand by that forever, unless somebody shows me otherwise, and then I got a whole other bunch of things to deal with. God, what I mean by that is I'm bigger than you, and I can get you for that. And so God is a God of retribution. I would say that's completely false. God is a God that restores us. And so anything that we call God's anger or God's wrath or whatever it all is about restoring us in the most loving possible way in our lives at that moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but help me understand then why the great flood happened when it happened, why Noah and all the animals on the ark were saved and the rest of the world was destroyed, because we're told God was angry.
Okay, but see, now that, first of
Wasn't
all,
that retribution as well?
first of all, I'm
and I'm asking, I'm not suggesting I believe that, but that's like a.
well,
pretty
first of all, it
obvious
wasn't historical. That's something that actually happened.
Well,
that didn't happen.
which didn't happen.
The flood never happened.
There was never a flood of any type. Was there an ark?
No.
Okay, so that all that is
Yeah, it's all prehistory.
Allegory.
It's all mythical expressions, stories.
so
that they would
the
tell.
ark that was supposedly discovered.
There's no Ark of Mount Arafat. No, there's no ark up there.
Okay, I mean, it's been so. Well, then why was the story told?
Okay, good question. That's a good question. The story was told for two reasons. First of all, to show how corrupt we are. If you remember, that story happened. There's Adam and Eve. Then there's Cain and Abel. Then there comes Noah's Ark. Then there's the Tower of Babel. The whole point of those three things. Here's God, creates the universe. It's good, it's good, it's good, it's wonderful, it's wonderful, wonderful. And then we sin, and this shows the result of sin. Now, also, too, in the world in which that story is told, they believe the world was, they believe history was cyclic. In other
Okay.
words, it went in a circle.
Okay.
We believe history is linear. And so they believed in one sense that every 3,000 years or so, God would just sort of destroy it all and start all over because it got so bad. So this is an expression of that kind of thinking. It is an expression of anything that God really ever did. God never destroyed the entire world. Never did that. And anyway, by the way, there's nothing unchristlike in God. Right? That's the great axiom we have to remember.
Right.
Nothing unchristlike in God. So when we read about those things in the Old Testament, we have to realize here is a culture trying to express itself oftentimes rather than something God actually did. So I was reading that thing before. That's the buried treasure underneath that we have to find. The words themselves may not be divinely inspired, but they give us something that takes us deeper. We find the pearl of great price underneath the words. With all that
Okay.
stuff too.
All right. Let's move on to the second half of this because we've gone beyond where I thought we'd go.
I know,
And this
that
is
was
how to
lovely.
respond to difficult people. First of all, who's difficult? You know anybody that's a difficult person? Jerry, have you ever met a difficult person?
Oh, yeah. Because I think a segue question I work in there, linking the beginning of this to the second half is how we are to react to people who are being completely unreasonable and just send our anger into a tizzy. So just keep that in mind. Let's
When
move.
you say completely unreasonable, though, that's your judgment.
Yeah,
Right?
that's true. That's good.
I mean,
That's
that
fair,
person
Marty.
may think they're
That's
being
fair.
totally reasonable.
But when it involves me, I'm the reasonable one.
Okay. So, like
Which
everybody,
gets your ego in place.
That's right.
yeah.
Okay, all right.
And you
The
tell Mary
humblest
Kay that
person
all
I
the
know.
time, right?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
you're the
right.
reasonable one and that she's wrong. I'm sure you say that a lot.
I'm sure that flies like a lead balloon.
Yeah, I was just going to say that plane's never getting off the ground.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
Okay, but how to respond to difficult people. And I mean, as a generic question, we'll get a little deeper into it, but there really is no set answer to that, is there?
I still think in a lot of ways, whenever I get upset with someone that I might think is an unreasonable person, it's because I'll feel like I'm being heard. And again, it roils down to my ego, my pride, my being heard or something. And so it all boils down to that again. And so why do I think they got to hear what I'm trying to say? who do I think I am?
Well, then why do you say it?
Good question.
You know what I'm
Why
saying? It's
don't
like
you
you're
shut
saying, why?
up?
Yeah, why don't
Yeah.
we just shut up?
Yes.
But we don't, do we?
We don't, because we seem to think somewhere along the way we're going to convince them otherwise. But
Which
we
means
don't do
now
so
we're
well.
the unreasonable person, right?
Oh, gee. Flip it around on you there, Jerry.
Well, I'm
Yes.
just saying. I mean, we all are like that. All right, and this is the one that I think makes it difficult to understand this. It goes to Matthew. And you know, when Jesus told his disciples, you have heard that it was said, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If someone strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other cheek also. So
I thought that was very interesting. Now, it's interesting what he does with that because, first of all, he quotes Christopher Hitchens, the great atheist, you know? And so whenever Jesus,
here, I'll get people angry at me. Is there such a thing as a great atheist? Never mind. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, maybe it's an oxymoron. I didn't write
Oxymoron,
about that. So and he goes on to say about that text. He goes on to say he calls Jesus' teaching deranged, suicidal, and immoral. Then he goes on to quote Friedrich Nietzsche, and I think it's a very fascinating quote. Friedrich Nietzsche, folks, if you have never heard of that guy, he's the guy that said God is dead and we have killed him. Here he was back in the 1800s predicting what is going on in the Western world today, where God has become completely, totally irrelevant. He predicted it way back when, and he's right that actually happened. But he says here, he contends that Jesus' words were proof of the fact that Christianity was for the weak and the cowardly. He regarded it as a slave-like morality where charity, humility, obedience replaced competition, pride, and autonomy. His search for the Superman, perfected in both mental and physical strength, is in without moral scruples. So Nietzsche's Superman, perfected in mental and physical health, without moral scruples, was later taken up and adapted by Adolf Hitler. So Adolf Hitler saw the great Aryan man as the Superman of Friedrich Nietzsche, and he called this weak and cowardly, this kind of teaching. So I thought that was interesting that Nicky Gumbel would kind of go there with all that. So this is the key phrase in this particular text. And he goes on to say, when someone strikes you on the right cheek, turn to the other.
Right.
And now what that is, now let's see if I can demonstrate this. If I were to,
Don't hit him.
I know I won't. If
Take your best shot.
if you were the slave and say I was the master with all this, and the way I would try to hit you
Right.
to show you that I don't respect you would
Right.
be to backhand you.
Yeah.
So backhanding was the way. So if you turn to me the other cheek, which would be that one,
Yes.
that would
If
mean
you're backhanding me, you're going
right.
to hit me.
I
Here,
hit you
right?
that way. Then I'm going to hit you. You turn your cheek, I'll hit you this way. Now you're saying to me by a non-violent protest, you're saying to me, treat me as an equal, hit me that way, and so this way someone would be hit as an equal. Now the other one was, well, that's the one that's mentioned there. There's the other one about if someone says carry my pack 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. The Roman soldier was allowed, where their packs would weigh 60 to 70 pounds, if you could imagine carrying all that all the time. They could make a civilian carry their pack for 1 mile. It was a law. And so in protest to that, Jesus, carry it 2 miles. Could you imagine a Roman soldier running after, I don't want to get in trouble, running after some poor slob, from Israel saying, give me my pack back. Give me my back. It's kind of a nonviolent kind of protest. So Jesus is really advocating nonviolent protest by the things he was saying.
Defiance.
Yeah, they were all acts of defiance.
Nicky Gumbel said we should expect to encounter difficult people. I thought, well, yeah, no kidding, because we all do, right? He said, but expect to encounter those who are rude, insulting, maybe abusive. Expect to encounter those who will persecute or prosecute you. Expect to encounter those who take advantage of you, resulting in a loss of time. And expect to encounter those who are takers. I thought, okay, great. He's going through all this, but he doesn't tell me what to do.
Not one time does he do that.
No, he doesn't say to
that.
me, okay, yeah, I can check these off and go, yep.
And I'm
yep,
gonna
yep.
add to that people who are demonic. There are people who are just evil. How could somebody kill 6 million Jews and not be evil? So, and what could they do with all that? It was just this radical injustice, and so yeah.
But there is no answer. Well, okay, what do you
No.
do? What do you do?
I guess Jesus' death on the cross. There's no answer to that either, in one sense.
But I mean, it's something we deal with on an everyday. I was kind of disappointed in Gumbel, to be honest with you, because he's listening to all this and he's
Yeah.
saying, da, 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 da. Okay, fine, I get that, but help me. What am I supposed to do?
And I agree with
there
you.
are no answers.
He did not give an answer. Did not.
So if you were to counsel somebody, I mean, it's all this. Well, just walk away, and we've all been in that situation where we go, no, I can't walk away. I can't let this go. It needs to stop.
If you can, I think those two examples are examples of nonviolent. I think, well, the whole idea, he talks about going to court, and he goes
Right.
going to court and for trying to work things out before you get to court, and because he says oftentimes you get to court. I think one of the great tragedies. I don't mean to be off the subject.
No, you're fine.
One of the great tragedies of the clergy scandal is we could never resolve any of it ourselves. It all went to courts. And the hierarchy and all of that resisted to the point of where if a abused person by the clergy had any kind of recourse, it had to happen in the courts because the church would not deal with it. And I think that is the greatest scandal of it all. Well, not the greatest scandal of it all,
But that's
part of the scandal.
well, and I've told you that's part of my anger because the church never stood up and
No, we
attempted
didn't.
to deal with it. It
No.
pushed it off,
Yeah.
put it in courts, came up with
And we
settlements,
thought we
had
would win.
lawyers get involved.
We thought we would win. The church thought they would win.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so how many abused victims right now feel like they have had those things happen to them, what you just said, and have no recourse, have had no recourse.
There's no place for him to go.
There's
Because and no one has said, this is my anger with the church. They haven't stood up and said, guilty as charged. Now let's come to us and let's see what we can do. Jerry.
It's a question Lisa had a long time ago, but I thought we were moving on. So how do we not become angry with people that say that the bishop covered up the clergy scandal? Such another.
Well, you don't have to be angry at him. I don't want to be angry at him. I mean, maybe at least the bishops did. Bishops did. I can't speak about a particular bishop. I don't know what's going on in their heart and in their mind. But bishops did cover it up. Boston, most especially, covered it up. Yeah, they did that for the longest time, actually. I remember way back when I was in the seminary, I think, it was an article in the National Catholic something that said that it's coming, folks. This clergy scandal's coming, and they knew about it. The clergy knew about it before the bishops knew about it before. Now, in some fairness, they thought it was a sin and just moved people around. But after a while, you gotta there's something worse than just sin here. There's something really bad here. So yeah, we covered it up. I mean, we have to admit that. Yes, we did.
But
So
this is where
I wouldn't get angry at him, but if somebody says the bishops covered up, yeah, they did. Now, if I want to talk about a specific bishop, Bishop Adamak, for example, I have known times when he has been unjustly accused, but maybe there's times he has not. I don't know specifically. I was never involved in the specifics of any of this stuff, so I can't speak to anybody in particular. Maybe you could do that more than I can.
well, I not so much about him as I've had victims tell me stories about Bishop Hogan.
Well,
Okay? And people that were physically
yes.
the direction that man gave is just
Completely out of date, completely the clericalism at its best.
and you know what? No one's ever stood up and said Hogan was evil.
Oh, I don't want to go that far. He was-
Oh, well,
I
tell you what,
don't
if
wanna
you listen
judge
to some of the
anybody.
stories of people who were victimized.
Yeah.
Listen to them and then
Yeah,
tell me
yeah.
that you wouldn't feel that way. My
yeah,
point is-
I could feel that way. I could feel that way,
and
but
I
I
don't
don't
mean
know.
that, it's not like pointing a finger. My point is no one's ever stood up and said, yep, that was a mistake and that should have never happened.
Oh, I know,
Yet
those
to
things
this day to say that.
Yeah.
So, that's anger,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And
yeah.
you
and
can't
that could be
tell-
a very righteous anger.
And how would you tell an abused person in that situation, now that's okay, just move on?
I would not.
You can't.
I can't.
Right?
Have that.
I
So there is situations where you're seemingly without any kind of recourse whatsoever in situations.
Yeah. Is
That
it
would-
ever okay to take revenge, and I don't mean eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth necessarily, like you killed my brother, I'm going to kill you, but to get revenge on people.
No, and biblically it would not be. It could not be.
Okay, biblically.
Because I'll say it this way, it never helps. It doesn't help. That beautiful, beautiful story. Now, if anybody that's done Alpha, you've heard the story that Corey Ten Boom tells about
Forgiving the guard.
forgiving the guard. Now, and here, I'm going to go back to the other chapter here for a second, and she tells the story in this book here. I just want to read the last two paragraphs, and she says, "Now, I want you to imagine. You heard the story. She's speaking to people in Germany about forgiveness." And she goes on to say in the beginning of all this, she says, "I was in a church in Munich that I saw him, a balding, heavy man with a gray overcoat." Anyway, I'm going to go on from there. Okay, it was in a basement room where I had just spoken, moving along the rows of wooden chairs. In 1947, I had come to Holland to defeat Germany with the message of God's forgiveness. It was the truth they needed to hear most of all. I gave them my favorite mental picture, maybe because the sea was never far from Holland's mind. I like to think that that's where forgiveness sins are thrown. And okay, it's the part she goes, the solemn faces, whenever she would speak about forgiveness, she says, solemn face would stare back at me, not quite daring to believe. There were never questions about about a talk in Germany in 1947. People stood up in silence. In silence, they collected their wraps and they left whenever she would talk. Then this man comes up to her and says he was one of the guards at Ravensbrück and says, he goes, "Will you forgive me?" And he puts out his hand to her. And she said she couldn't. And then she says, I mechanically thrust my hand into the one stretched out to me. And as I did, an incredible thing took place. The current started from in my shoulder, raced down my arm, sprang into our joined hands. And then this healing warmth seemed to flood my whole being, bringing tears to my eyes. "I forgive you, brother," I cried with all my heart. For a long moment, we grasped each other's hands, the former God and the former prisoner. I had never known God's love more intensely than I did at that moment. So I share that. Now, there's a woman that had every right to revenge. She could have got a gun out and shot him, for that. And whenever she risked forgiveness, I have never known God so tenderly as I did then. Something happened to her there. It wasn't her. It was all God. So every time I see the news and people want justice, and there has to be justice. There's not justice. But whenever they want blood and different, like we're going to convict somebody before we even have a jury. I said, it's not going to help you, man. It's not going to help you. No, I understand your pain. I understand your anger and you want justice. Of course you do. There's nothing wrong with it. It's good to have justice, but vengeance never helps.
I think just to capsulize what we've talked
It's easy for me to say. I know it. Easy for me to say.
It's okay to be angry.
Yes.
It's okay to be a difficult person at times, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah.
And it's okay to not necessarily how to deal with a difficult person.
Right.
It's a challenge.
Yes, it is.
And that there's nothing.
And get your ego out of the way.
Yeah. The point is, it's okay. You can deal with it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are out of time. And before we talk about next week, on the 17th, 2 weeks from tonight, right? Is that right?
Yes.
2 weeks from tonight, Jerry? Help me. You're better at math. It is 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Right. Today's the 3rd, 10th, 17th. We were hopeful to talk about something with a Christmas theme, but we're hoping that those of you that watch this, are there things about Christmas that you've always wondered, or and if you don't want us to talk about Christmas, do you have something else that we can talk about? Because we need a subject for the 17th, right?
Yes, we do. And I think Christmas can be a part of our maybe we can talk about some of the different things about Christmas that
I thought about you saying, Christmas out there is okay, but that's not what matters. It's Christmas in here.
Yeah,
That was where I thought we would at
Okay,
least start
yeah,
because there's
okay.
a lot. All right,
How
now,
does Santa Claus make himself small enough to go down the chimney?
Jerry.
That could be our topic, Jerry. But then
Okay,
again, we
Jer-
would allow you
that's
to be
gonna
the
be- yeah, Jerry,
facilitator
you're
for
the
that
guy.
one.
H and Chong had the answer, but we won't do that.
We're going to go to you. All right. John Livingston will make
Your former life, I know.
John Livingston is coming back next week because Jerry won't be here and I won't be here. So
I'll be here. So.
John is going to join us, going to join Father from St. Louis. And why don't you tell a little bit about what that program?
Well, you guys have heard me offer the quote by Karl Rahner: "Unless one becomes a mystic, he will not be a Christian at all." So, John, in the notes he sent to me, said this is the exact quote: "The devout Christian of the future will either be a mystic, one who has experienced something, or he will cease to be anything at all." And has that come to fruition in our own time? So we're going to talk about our modern church. What's going on in our modern church? Where does secularism come from? What's Rahner talking about? And is this the moment when that all begins to come true? And John has written some stuff about this that he sent to me. I thought was fascinating. And I think we have a lot to talk about next week about what you are becoming a mystic, and that maybe many of you watching this TV, watching us right now are.
To make it
mystics.
easier for them so they can define mystic, because I've heard.
Well, that's part of what we're going to talk about.
Okay. All right. So I'm giving away.
Somebody that's experienced something, and we'll leave it at that for now. And then, but somebody who's experienced something would be a mystic, and we'll talk about that in some detail.
Was the woman in the story you just talked with the guard, is she a mystic
I would say so, yes.
because of what she
Yes,
experienced?
that would be mystical experience. Yes, very good. Very good. Well, he's on a roll this today.
Yeah, I think, every once in a
When he's not
Yeah, okay, when I'm not angry.
See you, folks. Thank you for joining us. See you next week. Bye.